Just a few more points to round out this series on custom line styles. Now first, we should talk about editing custom lines. Now, having created the boy line definition, you can easily edit all the components of that definition. You can edit the symbol by changing the symbol drawing and repeating the steps to create the symbol. So for example, here's our symbol drawing. If I added a couple of center lines, and notice I'm not being particularly accurate about centers here, just a couple of lines. Having changed the symbol, then you need to recreate the symbol. So we need a fence, and we need the cell origin there, at which point the Create button is activated. And at this point, you can either give the symbol the same name as the old symbol, in which case you'll be prompted to overwrite the old symbol. If you change the name of the new symbol, you will then have to reassociate the new symbol with the stroke pattern as you did earlier. If you wanted to edit the stroke component of the boy line, then that's a simple method too. Simply click on the stroke component. You can then edit the dashes and gaps sequencing and dimensions as shown. You can also edit the component. Here's the boy line component. And the component consists of the point component plus the stroke component. You can now add additional strokes or additional points if you wish. Having done any of that, make absolutely sure that you save the changes and be aware that having saved the changes, all lines with the same definition in your drawing will change to the new definition. Now this is fine if that's what you want, but you might be quite startled to see a few existing custom lines change to the new definition and you weren't expecting it. Now, the next thing to consider is creating a new definition from an existing definition. And quite often it's easier to modify an existing line style than to create a new one from scratch. In fact, there is a duplicate option in the Edit menu, Edit, Duplicate, which will duplicate the selected component. Now that shows up as a duplicate component in the list, and you'll have to edit the name of that before continuing. Say you would duplicate each of the 3 components, if there are 3, of the existing line, and edit those, and change the names to the new line style name. But having done that, please make sure that you highlight the compound component and the new name, and click on Edit and Link. Again, it's very important that you link the two, the compound component and the name. Otherwise, there is no relationship between the two. Make sure you see the double arrow symbol next to the compound component, which tells you that in this case, the boy line is linked to the compound boy line component, as it should be. Another thing to look at is creating offset features. Now, I've mentioned this before in previous videos, and it's quite an easy thing to do. Let me show you what I mean in terms of an offset custom line style definition. I'm going to open the default line style resource file, and I can quickly do this way. There's the one I want. And let's take a look at one of these line styles. Railroad. You've probably looked at this already. It's quite a neat one actually, and it actually draws a railroad. Now I've got the compound component highlighted, and we can see how the definition is put together. We have 2 stroke patterns in the compound, both of which are solid lines with a half dash. But we have 2 stroke components, and that's the important thing. And we have 1 point component, and the point component is the tie across the parallel lines. So that's the basic idea. Let me go back to my original and personal one, this one, and let's add a new line style with offsets. I'm going to call this one Sidewalk, and I'm going to make the name right now. So edit, I will create a name, and I'm going to call this one Sidewalk. Enter. And the sidewalk will consist of 3 lines. In fact, 3 continuous lines. 2 lines representing the actual sidewalk, and 1 line representing the curb line on the outside of the sidewalk. So if you think about this, there is no actual point symbol in this definition. It's merely 3 lines. So I don't need to create a point component. All I need to do is create a stroke component and then the compound. So let's go to Edit and Create and Stroke Pattern. My new stroke component pops into place. Let's give it a name, Sidewalk. Enter. And there's my Sidewalk component. Here's the definition for it. Nothing there at the moment. So I'm going to add. The component is highlighted, of course. It's slightly indented in the view. It's going to be fixed. That's fine. It's going to be a dash. And the length of it, I'm going to leave at 1 unit. So that's 1 master unit, in this case, 1 foot. Now, I have my dash line in place, and that's all I really need at this point, as you'll see. So now I go to File and let's save. And I'm going to go to Edit and Create a compound component. Now I need to add my line. So I'm going to Insert, and I need the stroke component for sidewalk. There's my sidewalk stroke component. Okay. Now the offset is 0, which is fine. That's going to be the outside edge of the sidewalk itself, and that's my working line. Now I need to insert another of the same components. So we do exactly the same thing again. This time, though, I'm going to offset -3. That means that I'm defining the inner edge of the sidewalk as a 3-foot wide sidewalk. A little small, but it's fine for our purposes. Now I need to insert another line, exactly the same, and offset that one too. Now this will be a positive offset because it's on the outside of the sidewalk. And I'm going to set the dimension at 4 inches. Now notice that the dimension is in master units only, so I need to enter 0.333, which will give me 4 inches. Enter. And there's my third component. So everything's in place. Let's make sure we link the compound to the sidewalk. But if you notice, I haven't renamed this component. So we need to change this to sidewalk compound component and enter to save that. And now we link the two. Edit and link. My double arrow shown up. My compound is now linked to my sidewalk name. Now let's see if this works. Move that a little out of the way. Let's zoom out a little bit. So let's open up the Line Styles Custom. Choose our sidewalk. There's our sidewalk symbol. Select it. Click a line. And we'll drag. And let me zoom out a little bit more. And we can see that the sidewalk is being drawn very straightforwardly. And it's as it should be. Do it again. I'm dragging with the working line on the outer edge of the sidewalk. Now this will actually do, zoom out a little bit more, move this a little bit. If I use a smart line, then I can place the sidewalk and switch to arcs, and I can draw the sidewalk in an arc as well, which of course you can't do in multi-lines, which is why you need to learn how to use custom lines. So please try that for yourself. It's a fairly simple thing to do, and it does demonstrate how easy it is to make multiple offset lines. Now, talking about multiples, there's no reason why you can't add multiple symbols to a definition as well. You're not stuck with just one point symbol per definition. Simply associate whatever symbols you want to the stroke component when you are in the process of working on the stroke component and adding the points.